or Maldek. And so like we have all these different factions of people in the world now. So like maybe, and I think Drumville and Melchizedek talked about that, because I guess he talked to Ra too, and Ra actually took him to the center of the earth and stuff like this. But so like yeah, like and like that's why the wars in Atlantis was happening. It was like the peace lovers who were reincarnated from Venus, who actually came down here, and they're called wanderers. They come down here and they could ascend, they could live on another planet, but they come down here in order to teach peace and to try to get the people on the earth to understand the, monotheism, law of one, service to others, peace and love, all that kind of stuff. But then the people who had been on Maldek and they did the explosions, they were still thinking that way, and so they said, no, we have to have the war. So then they had the kind of like, and then the people who wanted to have the war ended up, their viewpoint ended up growing, and so then they had the wars. And I guess it was, Plato says it was, he heard that it was, the war was with Atlantis, which was beyond the Pillar of Hercules, where the Bahamas are, against Athens, which is where he was, but you can expect him to believe that, and that Athens won. But I think Ra, or even actually David Wilcox, says it was between Atlantis and the Rama Empire, which was in India, and that's what the Bhagavad Gita chapters 13 through 18 of the Mahabharata talk about, is the war, the nuclear war they had between them and the Atlanteans. And so they had nuclear war. And I think that's what Ross said, is we had nuclear war, and then that actually scorched people's souls. And so they weren't allowed to reincarnate right away. They had to go into the earth, into hell, I guess. So maybe getting blown up by a nuclear bomb will send you to hell. Not for eternity, but you'll have to reform your soul, because it kind of got blown out of proportion. So yeah, Ra said the people who blew up in Nagasaki and Hiroshima haven't even begun to patch their souls up. They're still discombobulated. So, sorry if you have a family member who died there, but I guess they're still on the lower astral planes in the center of the earth, doing that. So yeah, they did a talk about books too. They asked about the Urania book, like who wrote the Urania book, and they said, well, spirits from the lower astral planes wrote the Urania book, and it's actually did not get, the Galactic Command did not put their stamp of approval on the Urantia book, and so I mean, sorry, Urantia book followers, but your book isn't exactly true. It is written by spirits. It is a fascinating book to read. I read the Urania book cover to cover in 1 month, and I have listened to it maybe cover to cover, almost an MP3, just because it's interesting. But it's written by spirits in lower astral realms. Maybe if you wanted to be cynical, it's written by demons from hell, who. And I mean, yeah, it doesn't, the Urania book does not follow service to others path. The Urania book does not condone other teachings. So it does follow the blueprint of service to self. It does say, astrology is a false science, reincarnation doesn't exist. It goes along, don't believe in superstition. Witch doctors are all full of it. They're only in it for their own good. They're just pretending. It's along this whole line of atheistic. So maybe the spirits who got disembodied, they're and they're not ready to reincarnate yet, because they're still stuck in that mindset somehow, and they're confused of just way too clinical and left-brained, maybe. And so they're here and they're going, no, it's like this. There's no such thing, and they're just confused, and then they channel the book that way, and they channel through people who were privy to that, who were on that wavelength. So I guess you can channel, and that's kind of like playing with the Ouija boards. You can get spirits to tell you all sorts of shit, because that's what they believe in. So sorry, but that's what Ross says the Urania book's all about. And they said, well, how about the Old Testament and the New Testament? And they said, well, yeah, there's just as much service to others, good information in the Old Testament as the New Testament, because the Old Testament is way bigger than the New Testament, but there's a whole lot more negative stuff in the Old Testament too. service to self stuff. Orion, evil alien influence stuff in the Old Testament. And they even went as far as to say that the people who wrote the Ten Commandments were actually the evil aliens. The evil aliens wrote the Ten Commandments. Maybe if you want to call them the evil reptile aliens. And they weren't written on tablets, they're written on a scroll. And they said the reason that is because it's thou shalt not. And if you look at the Ten Commandments, it's all about thou shalt not, and the whole legacy of the evil part of Christianity, the control part of Christianity, it's all about thou shalt not. Thou shalt not masturbate. Thou shalt not, and it's like, look upon lustful eye upon your neighbor's wife and all this kind of stuff. And why don't you just say, thou shalt cherish your wife and only focus on your wife? Instead of saying, thou shalt not look on a lustful eye on your neighbor's wife. You can, instead of saying, don't smoke crack, you should say, go to the gym every day and drink water. And by saying that, instead of smoking crack, you have to have service to others would be like sharing yourself, sharing an idea, trying to get people to do something, only being positive, focusing on the positive and ignoring the negative. So, because you have to service to others, you have to be all about freedom. You have to have ultimate, absolute, 100% beautiful freedom. And so that's why you have anarchists this day, because they're rebelling against all this control. And you can't have any thou shalt not. You can't have the FCC saying you can't say this word because it's bad. Anal sex is illegal in 13 states and all this kind of stuff. Like, what, you're going to throw us in jail for that? Like, why don't you just say, thou, only say good words. Try to say good words, happy words, instead of saying you can't say this word. Because if you tell a kid not to put his hand in a cookie jar, he's going to do it to spite you because they don't like being told what to say. And so that's basically what Ross said about the Ten Commandments. Is those Ten Commandments were written by the evil aliens, and even Jehovah, the alien that I think that Moses, and they called him another name, was following for 40 years, was actually an evil alien. Well, I guess if you wanted to call it evil, there were service to self aliens because I guess the Jews were the chosen ones. They were the ones who were the smartest, I guess, in the area. So they wanted to take them under their wing, but then they got too high on themselves, and so that's why they got invaded by the Babylonians and all this stuff. So they are. So there's been a whole lot of influence by the service to self. And so the service to self, evil Orion aliens, their spaceships are the cigar-shaped spaceships with the little flying saucers that comes out of the bottom of them that are only 17 feet in diameter and fly around. And the good spaceships are the triangular spaceships. Those are the half gray, half human Beavians, I think they're called. And the Orions are on the teardrop spaceships, and maybe some of the more flying saucer-shaped spaceships. But that's what they say about that. They said that I guess the people were asking about certain people who lived, and they said, well, what about Adolf Hitler? And they go, oh yeah, Adolf Hitler, he was weird. They said he wasn't service to self. He wasn't entirely, he was just evil. He was just totally confused. So Adolf Hitler right now, he's in hell, or in the lower astral planes, being fixed, being, tended to by the keepers, I guess, and they consider themselves the keepers. If they've been in the spirit world for 2.7 billion years, I'm sure they are. The Venusians, he's being fixed by them. But I guess Himmler was straight service to self, and so he reincarnated on service to self planet. And I guess Rasputin was a service to self, and he reincarnated on a higher dimension. So you can reincarnate on a higher dimension, ascend by yourself. You don't have to do it all as a group. No, as far as ascension as a group is concerned, I'm very confused on this topic, and maybe somebody can help me clarify it in my mind, because they said, they're like a family group.